So, dude, I don't know. Like, one, I've really enjoyed our recent conversations, and then I've got a couple different shows we're doing. Like, we're doing an entrepreneurialism show, and we're doing XYZ philosophy. So, I don't know if, like, just really quick, but I don't know if you want to just give your backstory. And I figure
Sure.
we talk more about this recent, as deep as you're willing to go with your recent. I think your journey is like something that a lot of people would
Well, but before I do
relate
that,
to.
help me out, and because this podcast is like a microcosm of our relationship. Because you told me, hey, I got a podcast, you want to be on it, and I just said sure. And you gave me no background. I didn't ask for it, and I didn't even know you had a podcast. So shame on me. But if I'm going to give my background, is there a little bit of like a certain direction?
Yeah,
The name that you
yeah,
had sent me was Curiosity versus Christianity. So is this a little bit more religious focused?
like a little bit. I think the genesis of the idea is most important. So like I have a lot of things I want to say and I can't say them because I don't have any social proof. So like what I take great issue with is like Kim Kardashian, Taylor Swift, they can say anything and get paid millions of dollars. And then I'm not saying I'm one of them, but our most brilliant minds are in a lab and they can't afford to eat, right? Doing like really great philosophical work, really great science work. Like I have the distinct opinion that like the greatest of our minds are not in or on social media. Not me being one of them. I'm not saying that, but like, I'm on this like foray to kind of go challenge the status quo and like, so unfortunately I have to like establish a personal brand. Like, I don't know that, like, you can tell me I'm wrong, but like, for me to have the conversations I want to have, like, my LinkedIn and my social media needs to look like something more than just a fence contractor from Chicago. Like, if you looked at my profile, you're like who's
Mm-hmm.
this guy, like, leaving me. So I have things I want to say. So my goal is to launch a few shows, and I've got like 7 different shows, and then rapidly replace myself because I have freaking no interest in being a podcaster. Like I love talking to you, so I want to record it. I think we have really great conversations, and like there's some like breadth to it. I don't even know how to speak, but um, I don't want to be a podcaster. I don't want to be an influencer, but I do want to go. I want to go. I have some things to say and I want to elevate the voices. And I kind of want to challenge some of the really bad voices. Like, for instance, there's a lot of people out there selling coaching that doesn't help people. Like, I want to go embarrass those people. Like, what are you doing? Like, if you're a multi-millionaire, gazillionaire, like, why are you selling people books? Give your damn book away. Like, you're ripping people off. Like, your book sucks. Like, what, like, why are you marketing? And that's not exclusively to everybody. So anyway, I don't want to be negative with it, but I think there's a lot of like, I mean, similar to like what you're doing with the Bama group and all of that, like I want to go and do that. And so initially I have to make I think it's terrible, but like step one is I got to be a somebody. So I don't know. I got to probably write a book and like work on my personal brand. So in the meantime, let me answer the question. I'm going to do XYZ philosophy, which is going to be a recurring meeting with like a few different people. And I'm hoping that you and Matt Zay maybe are one of them. I've got a few other, like what I call mystics and wanderers, like where we can go challenge Christianity in a safe place. That's like one path. And then I've got, atomic construction. I'm doing, with like an industry staple in the construction industry. We're like going and doing a series, and then and it'll all be under the umbrella of the whole, until it makes sense to have like 7 different podcasts. Like it'll all be under better questions. So this would be, let's say we're talking religion, like under better questions, we're going to be in the XYZ philosophy series with Kevin and JR talking about whatever the hell we're talking about today. And then, maybe we're in this like why leadership sucks department too. If we go there on that, like that's where that's at. So I did a whole lot of talking. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. So I can do my background then. I kind of got an idea of what you're looking for. So JR Amato, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Oldest of 3 other siblings. So I'm the oldest. I have 2 younger brothers and a little sister. Good family. Grew up in the burbs right outside of Milwaukee in Brookfield. Was the dumb kid in grade school. I think I'm probably a little bit dyslexic. My family doesn't believe in that. We just push through. But kind of like a medium smart kid in middle school, smart kid in high school, and a really smart kid in college. So I kind of just got smarter as I got older. grades were never really a focus for my family. We were more of there's book smart versus street smart, and my dad was focusing on street smarts. All the typical suburban kid stuff. High school sports, football, track. I was a big ski racer, and then college in Boulder, Colorado. That's where I met Kevin day one. Probably the first guy I met after getting there, and we ended up living together sophomore year, and basically stayed close ever since. I studied accounting. Kevin studied accounting. I always knew I was going to get into business. My family is in the car business. My grandpa started our car business 62 years ago with the Ford store, coming up from Chicago to Milwaukee. And my dad got in and made it all go, added on a whole bunch of other stores. And now it's my job not to screw it up. So honored to be in the business. Feel like it's bigger than me. I don't feel pressure from the outside, but I feel pressure from myself to make it go. And I guess a sub note after college, just with some putting myself into work, I started working 70, 75-hour weeks. Kind of ignored my mental health and diagnosed with depression about 10 years ago. Went through all the steps, denied that, fought that, pretending like it didn't exist, ended up on medication, almost got married, called that off, hit a low. And in about, what did I say, October, just decided that I was going to beat depression. And I'd kind of ignored it for all those years because I never wanted to look at it, but just put it on the table, made a plan like I usually do for problems I'm fixing, and decided to beat that. And that's why I'm here, because I retired from the Catholic religion at probably the age of 14, but I had to do it to appease my parents, but I was out. And then in beating this, I started reading books. Books went to and ended up with mental health books, and then to eating healthy, then to, believe it or not, psychedelics, and then to Buddhism, which kind of seems like a pretty easy leap there. And then studying that, I said, hey, maybe I should look back at my religion that I started ignoring at the age of 12. Maybe there's something there that I wasn't mature enough to see. And Kevin, I think that brings me to what you're focused on today.
Yeah, dude, thank you. I didn't know it was. I almost texted you last night to be like, "Hey, you're cool to be super vulnerable." That's like, yeah, amazing. So there's so much depth in there. If you don't mind, I just want to. So I think your story is like, I know one, I never recognized how humble you were. Like, it's like, I don't, for anybody listening, like Jared's not dumb. Like, you're one super smart. I just remember in college, like we were battling for straight A's the whole way, and everybody looked up to you in some respects. So, and it's no small car business. Like it's a big business. Like I think you underscored that as well. But I really want to focus on this recent journey because, like, I think we've gotten closer probably in the last 3 years than I would say even than we were in college. Though we stayed close the whole time, and I appreciate the brotherhood and kind of the similar kindred spirit. The grinder mentality, all of it. And it's morphed itself into like, I would have never known. Like, so I've known you since 2000, what is it, 8? We graduated in 12, right? Yeah, we met. I do think you were one of the first people I met in Kittredge Hall in Boulder. 2008 to 2025, math is hard. What are we at there? 17 years? Is that right?
No, that can't be right, man. No shit.
We're old, JR. We're getting gray hairs. People are. All right, maybe we are. Man, I
Damn,
can't
I've
do
been
math.
telling people 12 years. I gotta, well, I guess 12 years since we've been out, or 13 years since we've been out. So that's usually
Yeah,
the easier way to look at it, is when you graduated, right? Not
yeah.
when you
No, I
started.
know. Every time I say 2008, I'm like, wait a minute, is that right? But so you said that 10 years, like, if you can just walk, like you said, I just would have never known, right? And like, so, and let me meet you where you are. I never gave. So first of all, I would have never put you in the camp of like at risk, depressed, or like having any medical issues. I would have put you in top of the class, like the most capable person I know, living a great life, like an enthusiast, kite surfing, dirt biking, like just an adventurer, like fun lover. Like any woman should be lucky to marry JR. Like what a catch! Like I would have just never known. And I just want to. I'll share. Like for me, I never was diagnosed. I didn't believe in depression. Like mental health was like shut up buttercup, like go to work, right? Strap up and that was me. And then like I had a rut 2 years ago, and I don't want to tell my whole story, but like I spent about 2 weeks with the most anxiety that I ever felt, and I realized that like there was a whole nother level to myself that I didn't know. So it was kind of like I hit a low, and then I emerged like with a way more profound understanding of myself and all my insecurities that kind of like run my life. And I don't want to get turn this into a philosophy, but just to say like I can relate to you. I understand like what mental, like whatever you want to call that, like imbalance, mentally imbalance. I didn't realize I had it my whole life too. But so just talk me through like so you, as of this moment in time, you go to the doctor, you get prescribed meds, and then can we just like go into detail of like, we don't have to go into detail of the psychedelics, but you've been on it. For me, it seemed like it was like I knew JR, I found Jesus in college. JR and I kind of separated, still buddies, but it's like you're running one path, I'm running another. I'm like, I'm going to Bible study with Timmy, and you're still partying, right? And then like I feel like it was never dismissive, but like that wasn't something that we bonded over, right? That was something I was running this race. You never judged me for it, but it wasn't like a race we ran together. And then, holy shit, dude! Like 17 years later, it's like I texted Timmy the other day. I was like, I'm on my way to JR's for a Bible study. He's like, because he called. He's like, did I read that right? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm going to and like, and I think, dude, I think it's such a testament to the Lord. So if we can just go from the past JR to whatever, like you're getting medication and then you're like, I'm going to beat this. And like, yeah, can you unpack that a little bit? Because I think it's
Yeah,
really powerful.
I think it's important to talk about because I think there's people out there who have it and don't know they have it because I didn't know what I had. I started working a lot, and I actually remember like first a couple months in where like I really felt like I was forcing myself to smile. 'Cause, I was in sales. I started off at the bottom. I started off selling cars, and I could just feel like my face hurt that I was forcing a smile, but it never really registered. And I was throwing up every morning, and I was dizzy all day. So I went to the doctor, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you got depression." Like didn't even have to think about it. He just knew you got anxiety and depression. I'm like, "No, man, I don't." Like, yeah, that was a wrong diagnosis. I definitely don't have that. I have nothing to be depressed about. There's no reason I'm not allowed to be depressed because, quite frankly, I've been dealt a pretty dang good hand, and I'd be embarrassed to call myself depressed. I'd
I'm
be
sorry. The year is you're in college right now, just to get like
no,
this
no.
about
I'm probably 2 years or a year, 2 years out of college. So let's call
out of
this
college. Okay,
2014.
14. Got it. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I told the doctor he was full of shit. Left there, decided not to do anything. It got worse. It got worse. It got worse. He had tried to give me medication. I wouldn't take it. I wasn't going to put anything in my body that I didn't need. And I really didn't think I needed it. Finally, it got pretty bad. I was throwing up every morning, just really not feeling stable. So I took the medication, and that's kind of that. I still ignored it. I pretended like I didn't have it. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone for probably 8 years. I just kept my head down, kept working. Big into like action sports, so that was my release. I love kiteboarding, I love dirt biking, surfing. So I was working as much hours as I could and filling all my free time with that, which was my distraction. But I just ignored it. I never wanted to look at it. I never wanted to even think about it. And I kept taking medication just because I thought that's what you do. They ended up giving me Adderall. I kind of figured out how our health system worked. I'd go there to get my prescriptions. I needed the antidepressants to be stable. I needed the Adderall so I could keep working the hours I was working. And in order to get the Adderall, I had to go in there and I had to meet with him every couple months to refill the prescriptions that some of them I needed, some of them I didn't need. And that was the cycle. I never really shame on me. I never really looked into the antidepressants on what I was taking. They were stabilizing me. Uh, but I just fought through. And then, my family doesn't believe, I told you we don't believe in dyslexia. We don't believe in depression either. That wasn't a thing that was real. You know, my mom would say, "Hey, just be happy." Like, why are you sad? Just be happy. Okay, well, I didn't know I had depression. And I think that was like the biggest shock to me is the symptoms weren't something I was expecting. But I became more open with it over the years. I ended up running into employees who had it and they needed help, and I thought it was powerful for me to say, "Hey, just so you're not alone. I got it too." Where
Mm.
and I started being more comfortable talking about it.
Can we just real quick so 2014, we're embarrassed, shame, guilt, like whatever. And then at what point are you willing to like, I mean, I guess when did your family know and when are you willing to open up to like, I think that's so powerful also. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what Jesus would do. For sure. That's what Jesus would do. But like, when do you emerge out of the shame and at least being willing to, how long does that take?
I originally, I think earlier I said it was about 8 years before I told anybody. I would say I'd take that back. I'd say probably in 2018. I think my cousin was living with me at the time. So I had a condo in Milwaukee, and I was kind of like my immediate family and my cousins are very close. When I'm the oldest of everybody, but when they would graduate from college or move out and get on their own, kind of the next step before they got their own place was moving in with me. So, my cousin moved in and, we became pretty close. You know how I am with relationships. I'm not someone to call and get on the phone and talk, but, the people I like, I keep close. And
Yeah.
I think I told him. And then the next person I told may have been either you or Billy Kurtz. I mean, you guys are my two best friends. And then I told my brother Andrew, who I felt comfortable with. And then this is all after 18. So, just give it every other year or a year telling people.
Yeah.
I think my sister found out in like 2021 ish. And then I'd say really the rest of my family I let in probably only a couple months ago. I think they somewhat knew I had mentioned it, but never really explained it to them. But I really explained it to them in Octoberish. Now there's some other people that knew, like those, like I said, the token employees that that told me they were struggling with it. I wasn't ashamed to tell them, hey, I have it too. But I also wasn't going around as the poster child to, you have to beat this. But any time that I found a situation where I could let someone know that I was, that they could come to me and talk about it because I got it, I would always do that.
It's awesome, dude. I don't know. Yeah, I had no idea. Just Billy Kurtz must have found out before me because I feel like I was at this year. Either you told me and my like ADD ass wasn't listening for sure, or I had no clue. So, um, but so, and this is so cool. I'm like, man, I feel like this story, and I wasn't anticipating this, but it's like, dude, so many people need to. I don't know what your story is, the story of redemption. And like, I think there's a dogma around Christianity and it's like you rediscovered it. So let's like go, if we can. So we're battling with depression for a decade. And then it was Hannah, right? Was it Hannah?
Yes, Hannah. So Hannah's my ex fiance. We dated for 2 years, then got
Wait,
engaged.
before you go into that, no, let's go before you go into that because I think this is I don't think you recognize how profound of a human you are and like how an amazing creature you are. Like, so you're single, and you're chasing, you're gonna adopt or foster, right? You're like a heart
Yeah.
on the charge. Yeah, so. Tell me about that. I'm going to say the year is somewhere around like 2000. This is out just after COVID, maybe 2022,
No, this is
23.
before
No,
COVID, man. This is way earlier
holy
than that.
crap.
So I
That's
had
crazy.
gotten, even though I was still kind of like denying the depression, at least it had stabilized. Probably was in my 30s, late 20s. And you start to realize like, well, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to get married. Maybe I'm not going to have kids. And I've always wanted kids, and that kind of brought me down a little bit. But then I realized, like there's other ways to do it. And it doesn't need to be my kid. I think a lot of people are stuck on the needs to be their own kid, which is fine. That's great. And in fact, Darwinism, that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to pass your genes along. So no hate in there at all. But I see kids. I work somewhat in the city, and I see kids who need help. And I think there's a lot of kids out there who just need guidance. And if I can't have my own kids, to me, that's not as important as making an impact on somebody's life. And I think it's still for me, it's an opportunity. I think if I don't have my own kids, I definitely will adopt. I went through most of my certification with children's, but then right before the final certification, I met Hannah. When starting a relationship, bringing a kid into the mix probably isn't the best way to go about it.
It's a little different than bringing a puppy home, huh?
Yeah. So
Jeez.
those plans they've been put on hold, and they are still on hold. The beauty of adoption is there's no real timeline. I think I could do that the rest of my life, and I definitely will. I don't think there's anything cooler than being or anything more rewarding, or like the ultimate challenge, ultimate goal is to be a good parent, either father or mother. And it doesn't always have to be the traditional path. One of my favorite quotes is, "If you don't know where you're going, any road's going to get you there."
That's awesome. Also, we should sit down because I have another person that like I think our foster care is really broken. I think we could put some good minds behind that and like give some kids a chance because it's like, dude, once you get in your first lick of trouble, it's just compounding. Like you can almost predict a kid's life by not having a male, I want to say male, a stable nuclear home. Like you get in trouble once, twice, then you get into the system, and then like you can almost predict like the rest of their lives. So I don't know, man. I think there's probably a real opportunity for us to bring
That
some of our acumen at scale.
that could be a whole podcast on itself, because that's an interesting
Yeah.
dynamic. You know, especially going through it as a single guy, because I think there's a lot of, I was doing foster to adopt, and there's a lot of people who I think like, and we could have another discussion on the how crazy it is with all these fertility issues nowadays. I'm not sure if there's more fertility issues or if it's more just a topic we talk about, but I think it's probably a little bit of both. But I think a lot of people who are looking to foster and adopt are people they can't have their own kids, that are looking to take somebody else to foster and kind of take somebody else's kids. And I think that
Well,
makes the whole idea of fostering is to get the kid, to allow the parents to get better so they can get the kid back. And
yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. I have like, dude, we exist in a world and all we talk about is abortion, pro-life, pro-choice, and the ease of an abortion versus the difficulty of adopting a kid for good reason. But like all the red tape, like what are we doing? There's people that don't want kids and there's people that do want kids, and we're making it. I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, let's. That's it's on my list. That's one of the topics. Like
cool.
it's yeah, that's yeah. And I actually, I don't know why. Just like now in this conversation, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. I think we could go affect that fight. I actually know we could, and that's a lot of the intent of all of this is to
I don't
start.
know if I could affect that fight, because I don't know where I stand. It was a long process, but if you're a state-run organization, you can't just give kids to anybody, man. You need to you need
Yeah,
to do
no,
some background. Like,
for sure. No, I think what I would say is so like at scale. Well, why not? This is authenticity. I think is going to be the fleeting value of the world, and it's one of my greatest. Like it's one of my greatest superpowers. So let's just have an authentic
mhm.
conversation. So I think it's hard for good reason, but I don't think they're the systems that like let's talk about really quick. I'm gonna go like there's another big problem we need to talk about, which is the industrial jail complex, right? Are you familiar with that at all? So
Oh yeah.
like we have that system that doesn't work, right? Because there's a lot of profit in keeping people incarcerated, right? There's no profit in restoring and rejuvenating humans, which by the way is everything that Jesus stood for. But and I could go, but there's no system right now, and there's no money like giving kids a chance. So I think there's a huge vacuum of a business and charity opportunity that like put something sustainable together. Cause like if you don't get adopted, I feel like, and I don't know, maybe you know this, like if a kid doesn't get adopted or foster, whatever, like by like 3, 4, 5, and which most people don't want to take a kid that's damaged, right? So like I call it like advanced foster care, like from 5 to 18. Like if you haven't gotten picked up, right, which we just said it's very hard for people that want to pick them up, right? They end up in a broken system where in which they don't get any mentorship, they don't get any guidance, and like I hate to say it, but they're like somewhat by way of our society, they're almost doomed, right? The old saying that everybody says is like, lace up your bootstraps, but nobody talks about like if you're 5 to 18 and like you don't even know, like you may not ever learn math. You definitely don't like, no, you never know love, right? You're like a lonely child. I don't know. I could probably cry right now, dude. Like there's such an opportunity there. Like, how do we as society, and I'm going to fucking get pissed. How do we talk about what is between our legs? How do we talk about abortion? What we fucking think of guns all the time. And we don't talk about our kids and how we can give all of the kids a chance that didn't have a parent. Like, what is more impactful to our society than like giving kids a freaking chance at life? Like, and it's not that damn hard, dude. It's not that damn hard.
I
And
mean,
there's
the chances are you're absolutely right there. But I think the bigger thing that you didn't mention is the trauma they're dealing with. I mean, to come from the stuff that they've seen at a young age, I look at my traumas and then I look at what they've probably gone through. Holy shit. I get it. The opportunities aren't there and the schooling isn't there, but just fighting off what they've seen and how that's affected them is such a hurdle.
Yeah. And to your point, like, and I would share this with you, like, I'd say we had pretty rosy lives and we still had trauma that drove us. And there's all the studies, right? Just the right level of trauma makes you a high achiever. And I think we can go ahead and put ourselves in that camp. But I think a little hope, and I don't mean, yeah, for sure. But what you're speaking to is kind of why they become undesirable and why society looks at them and, they become troubled kids and they act out and whatever else. But man, a little hope and a little love goes a long way.
But you're right. I mean, and I hear another podcast episode could be, is the American dream still real? That so much of it is where you start. And, the importance of the middle class can't be underscored. And you see stuff like COVID and you see these things that happen now. And it's just the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And that gap continues to grow. And I think that's a dangerous thing. I do.
Oh yeah, no, I would put it up there as probably, yeah, the degradation and erosion, really the evaporation of the middle class is a huge problem. And yeah, and we won't get into my philosophy, but until we solve for divisiveness, we're going to argue about stupid stuff when we should be uniting ourselves around that problem because, yeah, it's set to tip off in a bad way. But yes, that would be the wealth gap that would be a worthy episode. Well, let's get back to you though. That was a great riff. So I think so. You're getting ready to get married. You're engaged. Like, I think that was a huge decision, and I consider you one of the most courageous people I know. But do you mind sharing like what that was like when you had to pull that plug?
Yeah, that was like that. I have tough conversations almost every day, and that was by far the worst conversation. What it came down to is, Hannah was phenomenal. She's just a great person. And it was nothing she did, it was nothing I did. And we were extremely compatible. We liked the same things. I loved her personality. She was mentally interesting and challenging. There was no spark, though. It just wasn't love, it was compatibility. And even now, I still don't know the answer to that question. What's more important? Is being compatible more important? Is being in love? Love fades. Compatibility is forever, I guess. That's our, you're, I guess I had called off relationship before because I didn't feel like it was love. And that person was a phenomenal person as well. So I think in this relationship, I was a little more open to, okay, well, there's more to this than just physical attractiveness or a spark. And then I think that's why I settled for so long with it. But at a certain point, you go to get married and you're like, wow, this is the real deal. And she had started her own business and was just doing awesome with it. But that also meant that she was traveling a lot and she was gone for a full month. I believe it was January or February. And I remember being home going, well, this is kind of nice. I don't mind. I don't mind being, that she's gone. That's kind of when I realized that we were best friends. We weren't in love.
I remember two distinct phone calls, which I cherish and love that I get to be a part. Like it's my greatest honor to be like semi important in a relationships with particularly people as capable as you. But like you called me, it had to be the day or 2 days after. And I'm sorry, Hannah, but it was like it was before you were getting ready to propose, and I think your question was like, "Were you
Yep.
excited?" I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you should be more excited." Like, I think, yeah. And then you called me, and when she was like, they were having a scuffle with your mom, and I don't know, man. I don't. We don't need to belabor the point. She's an awesome woman, and I think it just takes a lot of courage what you did because you could see that long term it probably wasn't there. And I would weigh in on like I think love is a choice. I used to wrestle with that all the time, and like I don't think you fall in and out of love. Like you stay in love when you're with somebody that like the compatibility. I don't know if the compatibility is high enough or whatever else, but I do think. I mean, for what it's worth, like I would not condemn yourself. Like I think you made the right call, and there's somebody out there that's like, yeah, it's just yeah, you're gonna. And I have it with Lauren. I used to be that way. I was solitude creature. Like I wanted my space, but I've come to a place where like, man, I don't spend enough time with my wife and I miss my buddy. And I think, yeah, anyway, that's out there for
How
you. I
how
know that's out there for you.
how interesting is that? I totally forgot about that conversation. But for the listeners, like I'd say I had already bought the ring. I was gonna propose, and I called you. I remember it now. Like now that you brought it up, I said, "Dude, were you excited to get married?" I'm not seeing. I feel like I'm going through the steps here, and this is next. But I don't really want to be do. I totally remember that now. That puts everything into a slightly different perspective of how it all turned out.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've been wrestling kind of as we go deeper with the scriptures and this like kind of this like deeper subconscious that we like don't access, which I think is actually biblical. And I suspect it's in the Quran too, but it's like you're wrestling with yourself when you're like, I think your true self knew,
Oh yeah.
like you just knew. And then, but it was like what you're supposed to do. And I think that's how we go through most of our lives. But yeah, I
she
don't know,
she
man.
she knew as well, and she felt it, and I think she felt the
Yeah.
same way. But she was at a certain age. It was good enough. I think we would have been okay. We wouldn't have been happy, but we would have been okay. We didn't fight, which probably actually was a problem looking back on it. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think because she let me off the hook pretty easy. I still feel guilty about it. I feel like I pulled the rug out away from someone, and even though it's not love, you never want to. I still had love for her. We weren't in love, but I still had love for her. And
Yeah.
you never want to hurt somebody that you care for. And I think that's the hardest part for sure. There's guilt with that of putting somebody through that. But she let me off the hook easy, and I think that's because in a way she felt the same way.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we could get into this. Could be a whole nother episode too, is relationships and all. I mean, our divorce rate's 50%, so we get it wrong more than we get it right, or just as much. So, how many people are in unhappy marriages and all that could be totally a chapter of its own. And I'll just say, like, for what it's worth, I think, like, I would, yeah, free yourself of that guilt because I think you made a great call for both of you guys long term. It wasn't, you didn't take anything away from her. You freed her to go find her person. And I think, yeah, I think there are, yeah. Anyway, but let's take that. So that's about the time you hit another rut, right? And so that's what triggered kind of what I'll call it. You've had an evolution, a very profound evolution in the last year or two. Can I say that, or you want to you kind of hit rock bottom a little bit?
Not yeah. I think that wasn't rock bottom. That was the journey too. Uh, because then to get over that, all I did was just put myself fully into work. Like I usually do. That's kind of where I ran to hide, and just okay, well, I'll put in crazy hours here, so I don't have to think about that there. And then that ran it. That took its toll, and then you slowly hit rock. I'd say rock bottom was October.
And do you mind I mean, I can extrapolate or interpret and guess, but rock bottom, something to do with being lonely. I mean, they talk about, I hate to say it, but the God sized hole or whatever, but what was talk me through rock bottom for you. Cause I don't know that I know,
Oh man.
if we may, if we can
Yeah.
go there.
So I'm in a family business, and we were at a business meeting, and then those stories, I think there was so much bottled up frustration to within that business and with myself, and pretend. I guess always pretending like everything was good, or always being the always having to spin everything else positive for everybody else, and having to a little bit be an extrovert. I'm an introvert, but having to play an extrovert at work, and I think that kind of caught up to me, and like finally just sharing that with my dad, who's he's my boss, I guess. He's the owner. It is his gig still, and having to admit that to him and myself that no, I'm not having fun. No, I don't like this. No, I'm worn out. No, things aren't good. And I guess just sharing that was maybe I'd been at rock bottom for longer and not recognized it, but letting somebody else into that and letting them know was a big step for me.
Got it. And was there anything, like for me, there was a triggering moment. Was there any defined like this isn't what I want. I'm not happy, right? Beyond my depression. I'm not like in October, like coming out and talking to, was there any defining like series of events or things that like left you empty or like enough to bring it to your boss? Was there a build up or
I would say there wasn't. I would say it was just pure exhaustion.
mm.
It was just
So
ex-
your vice of work, I mean, and I think we all do this. We all humans, like we're hiding from something. So you had realized that that wasn't going to sustain, like that had run its course. Like your fulfillment and your ability to just bury yourself in work became empty, more or less. Would that be a
it,
fair characterization?
more, yeah. And the fact that I could keep working harder, but I wasn't going to get more results.
Mm.
In fact, me working harder might have at times was hurting us. It was preventing other people from growing. It was me staying there 5 hours longer than I should have and just being in a pissy mood and bringing other people down. And I guess realizing that I couldn't just work pure grind my way out of the situation that I was in.
Yeah. So your safety mechanism, like, yeah, got it. Very interesting. And then, so I only know from one call, which I think was well after rock bottom or whatever, where you start getting curious about. I don't even know. I had been working with a coach. So if you hit rock bottom of October of this year, then I was about a year and a half into kind of a renewed self that maybe you saw or something. But I mean, you brought me in at some level at some point in time where you were gonna, I don't even know. I mean, yeah, let's maybe just tell the story of how you kind of dug your way out.
Yeah.
And
Y- so I hit rock bottom and I kind of just came to the conclusion like, okay, well, fuck this. I've ignored this for however long I've had this. I'm just going to beat it. So like I would do anything, I opened up a Google Doc and I started typing out a plan, rules, what I know is true. And part of the plan was work on the plan every day for 5 minutes in the morning. But I just started putting it all on paper. And I think a big turning point was deciding that I wanted to beat depression. It's not, if you don't have depression, this is going to make no sense. Or if you've never had maybe an addiction or anything, but you have to decide that you're going to beat it. And deciding you're going to beat it's not just saying I'm going to beat it to somebody or like, it's obvious. Like, yeah, you don't want to be depressed. You should beat that. But do you really want it for yourself? Have you made the decision to say like, fuck it, this is enough? I'm going to do it. It took me a while to make that decision, even after I knew I had to make it. I remember for a week, like, do I really want to get better? Am I willing to put the work in? But I was able to do it. And when you have depression, like, there's every excuse why you shouldn't. And getting that initial motivation is the hardest part. Again, probably doesn't make sense for somebody who doesn't have it. But I think if you have it and you're listening, I think you could probably connect to it. But yeah, just finding that motivation to get the ball rolling was so difficult. But part of my plan that I created was to, I was going to listen. I was going to listen to audiobooks every day on the way to work, meditation, eating healthy, backing off of the prescriptions. But the reading the books is what got me going. I started off with antidepressant books, anti-anxiety books, and then reading health books. And I've always been a curious person. I don't even have TV service in my house. As embarrassing as that is, like people are going to think like I'm a serial killer. I don't have Netflix. I don't have HBO. But I have YouTube, and I love documentaries and like research. So I always have at least one research project going on. So I tend to get like really into things, like excited about topics, and then I start doing a whole bunch of research, and then usually I kind of just move on to the next topic. But yeah, so I think it went self help, antidepressant books to eating healthy to psychedelics. Like I said, I got really into like the research of psychedelics. I've done psychedelics, but never the correct way. More of just abuse in college and after college, but never like with a shaman. And I got excited about that. I read like 2 or 3 books about that. And then that led to spirituality, like the Timothy Leary stuff, which is kind of crazy because, we're at an age where we didn't really cover that in school. I guess it's not something you really learn about in school, but the counterculture of Timothy Leary and LSD. And it was just historically interesting. But the spirituality was always there of like how they were connecting to this mystical spirituality and they were solving the problems of the world during these things. And how, alcoholics were taking one trip in the right way and being cured and not having alcoholism anymore and not being addicted to the drug, not wanting to go back to it. And that, that all that mention of spirituality, coupled with reading a Dan Brown book.
We can stay high level here, but for the listener that is like, and I think there's going to be so many, not that we're going to reach a big audience, all 100 of them, but it'd be really cool if you could just sit down and chart, like, because I think what you miss is how capable you are. So you can, like, not most people can sit down and make a plan, but if they followed your plan, like, I don't even know, like, if I'm somebody that resonates with you and I'm like, I want that journey, like, if you could maybe line by, like, read this book, then this, and watch the, just kind of a user's guide to beat depression, like JR's, if you could put that together, I would ask you, we can publish that or whatever. Cause I'm like,
I,
I wouldn't even know where one starts. Like,
I can, but I don't know if my plan's the best for everybody. Like
no,
I would encourage people to see somebody, to see help. I can't do that. Like it just doesn't work for me.
well, you get me right into my, like, I think it's so, you got to be so careful because, like, you went to one doctor that, like, if you had gone to the right doctor, you might never have, you might have beat it when you're for, that's the difference in a good therapist and maybe a not good. But yeah, I agree. I see a therapist, like, it's to find a good one is also a tough road because you can get to the wrong person.
But I would encourage, anybody to go to do that, even though I don't do it, like it's, so that's where I get concerned with my plan is, like there are professionals out there who know this much better than me, and I don't have it figured out. I think I've made great progress. To kind of give you an idea where I'm at, since October, I'm 1/4 of the medications that I was once on. I'm not completely off,
huge.
but I'm getting there. I'm making progress.
That's awesome. Congratulations. It's such a milestone, dude. I think that's so cool. But so then take me to the point of, we're curious about Jesus again. We read all the books, self-help, health, all of this, and then
so I was reading a book on Buddhism, and in the book on Buddhism, it was really interesting. They said, like, hey, this is all good stuff in here. Like, you should read this. You might like it. But just so you know, like, you should probably focus on your religion because there's good stuff in there too. And a lot of the principles you're going to learn here are already being taught to you in your religion. And I was like, oh, well, you know what? I should give that another try. I was immature at the time when I blew it off. And I grew up in the church, having to go to Sunday school. And I was the smart ass kid who actually did the research and asked the questions that couldn't be answered. But from a more mature lens, I think there was a lot there that I skimmed over. And so that got me re-engaged. And then it wasn't really, like, Kevin, wasn't really re-engaging in just Christianity, though. I called you because you were kind of my expert on it. But I was really like more engaging with spirituality. And my bigger interest was like, okay, what are all these different religions saying? And what do they have in common? Because I think there's a lot more in common than different, but we focus so much on the differences, and that's what all the fighting is. And the differences are important.
Yeah, I think it's such a profound statement, and it's so funny, like, going back to you in Sunday school. I think our religion doesn't open the door for that because we're so stuck in trying to be different. Like, Jesus has to be the only answer because this is what I know to be true. And if Jesus isn't the only answer, then everything I know is a lie. And then what we actually end up doing is, like, we isolate ourselves from all the other religions rather than bringing ourselves together, which, like, I think Jesus' message was one of inclusivity, compassion, and love, not exclusivity. So yeah, I would get kicked out of most of the churches because I do believe that we're seeking the same thing with a different name. I'm near certain of that. And I intend to leverage some of what you studied and go launch my own study. But I think they call it Allah, we call it Jesus. Like, I think it's all the same. I'm very certain it's all the same. We're all seeking the same God. And I think the next level of that is it's all inside of us. Like, it's in our deep spirit, subconscious consciousness that we've put up so much sin and barrier to that we can't access our true self as God intended us. So the scriptures tell me that.
What's interesting about all this is, like, so I'm reading the Bible right now. I'm doing a 1 through. And I'm reading the Gospels right now. I'm actually on Matthew, and I love it. Like I love everything this Jesus guy is talking about. I think his parables are just so interesting and trying to find the deeper meaning. And you know, but when I do go, because I'm in two Bible groups, one that I created that's a little bit more not Christianity. I think it's Christian focused, but it's more of like deep thinking. And then like this other church group I go to, like I'm trying to get out of it because it's very Jesus focused. And which is odd because that's my favorite part of these readings. I love reading about this guy. There, for whatever reason, and I haven't been able to connect the dots, the churches talking about it makes me frustrated. And I just don't like that setting. Like I'm actually trying to get away from the church, even though I'm more involved with religion than I've ever been.
Yeah, well, you're hitting on a lot. I mean, the difference in spirituality and religion, and I think what you're keying in on that most can't see is we've become the Pharisees. Like our religion has become, we are the self-righteous Pharisees that would kill Jesus. Like we would be those. Like, so when you talk about the church small c, I think that's what you're wrestling with is like, it's in like by way of its own being, it's in direct misalignment with what Jesus preached. And I think I would suspect that's what's giving you angst. They come to the text. They come to the
Yeah.
text looking to verify their ideology as the only right the ideology. They don't come to the text seeking the deeper meaning. Because I think if we change our disposition, we can read the text and we can see what Jesus told us. I mean, it's clear, but the power corrupts. Like power corrupts, right? And then the church exists to sustain itself and has built all of these rules and these practices that don't make any sense at the end of the day. Like I can go rip up any foundational Christian rule that doesn't align with Jesus very easily, but they're affirming it, right? They're affirming that if you don't believe that Jesus died and rose again on this day, you're going to hell. Like that in and of itself is in direct misalignment with what Jesus said, I think. Like, and to my Christians, I still like I believe in Jesus and what he said, but like he never said that. He never said that. He said a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things about renewing yourself and dying to yourself and being resurrected in this life. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I think it is unfortunate.
I think part of my frustration with the church, and that was very well said, but like it's the same frustration I had when I was a kid and I wanted to get out. It's the same exact stuff, you know. But
Well,
now
yeah,
I'm,
I mean,
what I've come to the conclusion of what is we're really good at making rules. Like we read the Bible, we read the church, and we're like, okay, here's the rules of church. So you go to church every Sunday, you take the Eucharist, you do the Ash Wednesday. I don't know them all, man. I'm throwing them out of order, but you do all these things and you're good. Okay, well, that's not how it works. You can't make up your own rules, follow your own rules, and say you're good. And if that works for you,
well,
God bless you. But it's more about how you live. I think someone who doesn't go to church any Sundays, never has gone to church, but lives like a stand-up life and just automatically lives the teachings of Jesus, even if he knew or didn't know he was the Son of God, or doesn't believe he's the Son of God, doesn't matter. No, but
yeah,
the one who's
yeah.
practicing is more important than following the man-made rules.
Could do a whole nother episode, but I think the irony of it is in just the example that you said is if you ask a Christian, like if you, because I engage in these debates all the time, and I'll throw out there that I think Muslims go to heaven, right? And they're like, well, no, because they believe in good works, and we believe that we're saved by faith. But then we also say, like, if you don't do this, this, and this, and this, you're not going to. And it's like we say this in the Christian church, like faith without works is dead, and I don't know, like it's like embedded in what we say. It is in contest with itself, like all the time. And I'll just say this here: what we hang on in the Christian faith is one verse, and I think it's John 6, but it's like I'm the way, the truth, the life. Like, and nobody gets to the Father except for me. And we interpret that to mean, well, if you don't believe in our ideology, you're going to hell. Where I think Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, the life. Like, live like I lived, and you will find heaven, right? You will find God. Like, live the way I am, the way, the truth. Like, I just think we misuse that one scripture it's the one scripture in there that could be interpreted as like, we need to isolate, we need to exclude everybody else if you don't believe in Jesus as we prescribed him, not as he prescribed himself. That's what gets me. It's like Jesus didn't say anything about the day he physically died and stopped respirating and rose again. He didn't say anything about it. And yet we've built this foundational understanding that if you don't believe the way we believe, you're going to hell. And I don't know. But yeah,
I
I think
mean,
what you're
smart ass JR from the younger years would say like a very obvious comment. Okay, if you have to believe in Jesus to go to heaven, what about all the people before Jesus?
yeah, no, yeah,
2,000 years ago is not a long time, guys. It's really not. I mean,
yeah.
it's a sliver of history. I don't know the exact dates on how long humans or humanoids have been around, but and then for the other thing, what about people who have never had access to Jesus? What about the Amazonian living in his tribe in the middle of the rainforest that's never had any kind of Jesus, but does believe in some sort of spirituality and sees spirituality probably a lot clearer than we do in our modern city like setups?
Yeah, you're good, man. I'm right there with you. And it's well, the tribe of Christianity has to support itself. So like it's easy for them to just say, yeah, God will deal with them, but it doesn't answer. Like our fundamental belief doesn't answer those questions. Like Christianity can't answer that question pointing to the text, so they kind of just ignore it. But yeah, and that's where it's insufficient. I think that's the thing. It's insufficient if you're willing to seek a deeper meaning and you take a more expansive view of God. But like I picture like 12-year-old JR in the church group, you were asking the questions that they can't answer, which threaten the ideology. And so there you get dismissed because it's like fall in line. And that's why I say it's
The,
more like the Pharisees.
the irony is all they had to say was, I don't know. That's a great
Yeah.
question. Let's try to explore that together. Like that. And I don't know versus making up some sort of answer that didn't really make sense.
Yeah, well, and we can get into my whole curiosity theory, but the greatest superpower of humans is the ability to be curious, but that's a dangerous place to venture out into the unknown. People can't exist there.
According to Doug at Alley's church, the greatest superpower is gratitude, by the way.
I've been wrestling with that with a buddy of mine. So well, hopefully we can get Doug on a podcast and iterate on that. But yeah, gratitude is also, a superpower.
Allie sent, so my sister's name is Allie, and she's in a church group in Colorado. And she sent us this video from her pastor, Doug, on gratitude being the superpower. And at the time, I was listening to this Buddhism podcast as well. And during that same week, the podcast for them was on gratitude. And I was just like, well, like exactly what I was talking about. We're talking about a lot of the same things here. And
dude, yeah, it's amazing when, and now you're getting into miracles and all. It's just amazing that living word, like how much you can read the same verse and get a totally different meaning, and it always meets you right where you are. I mean, it's amazing. But yeah,
you get what you need. You get what you need when you're reading it.
Super awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. I think, well, before we index on that, I want to ask a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, just because I think that's also super profound. But you go on this spiritual journey, the psychedelics, all the books, you go to Buddhism and you recognize that.
To be clear, I wasn't doing psychedelics. I was reading about psychedelics, but I would be open to you doing it with like in the right setting with a shaman if that's around somewhere.
I've been learning all about that as well. I'm very curious about it, the ayahuasca, all of that stuff, but that's good because I didn't think you did, but for the previous conversations, I thought that you had, but
I've done it. I've recreationally done it in college. And but not in the last 10 years.
Been there. Aspen, man. That was my one and only with you.
Yes, sir.
The mountain spoke. The mountain spoke to me for about 3 hours. But but then so you were reading about Buddhism and you recognize that it's all connected, and then you're like, let me go back to my roots. Like what is it about Christianity that drew you back to Jesus, back to the Bible versus practicing Buddhism? And particularly I'm interested because I'm curious. I mean, I know what is I don't know. I actually don't know what the difference is. Like, can you practice Buddhism and Christianity?
I don't know. You know what? The reason I came back to Christianity is it was the most accessible, and I knew the most about it.
Got it.
I wouldn't say like if someone were to ask me what religion I am and actually like cared to know the answer, or like they'd want me to explain, I would definitely tell them, okay, well, I don't really fit in any category. I
Got
would
it.
have a hard time categorizing myself. Now, if I had kids, yeah, absolutely raise them Christian. I think the values are great. I think the message is great. As a Christian, if I were to say I'm not Christian, or if I were to say I'm not sure if I'm Christian, the first question you would ask me is, do you believe that Jesus was the Son of God and he died for our sins? And I would have to tell you, uh, I'm not sure I believe that.
Okay.
I'm
I
not
was going
sure
to
I
ask that. That was going to be the question. Got it.
I'm not
Got
sure
it.
I don't believe that. Like, I'm not saying that that didn't happen or that in my heart of hearts, I don't really know if that happened. I don't know if that should be the main focus of a church that I'm involved with. And I know that is the key part of Christianity. And I think that's where my frustration with all these teachings comes from is that, yeah, I get it. We all believe that. But, what did he mean when he said this? What did he mean when he said that? How should I be living my life? How should I treat the marginalized? How do I handle the fact that I do have wealth? And if you read the Gospels, that's not a good thing, necessarily a good thing. You know, accumulation of goods and wealth. How should I live my life? And I think that's why I would have a hard time putting myself in one box.
Yeah. I think the amazing thing is like, and that's okay. And it should be okay. And like, you should, like, and the church would condemn you. And that's where I think it's so hypocritical. It's like, yeah, dude, you're on the journey. And we're all on the journey. And that's great.
Where are you at with your journey? Because we're kind of on
Oh
opposite paths.
gosh.
In
No,
college,
yeah, we're,
you were going towards it. I was trying to get away from it. I was finally in a place where I didn't have to go to church every Sunday. And I could tell you about some of our church antics. I'll probably make you laugh. I mean, the stuff that we used to do as kids, with two younger brothers, a little sister, and a mom who, were all looking for some ADD and looking for something to do. We got some stories. But you were zigging
sounds
in, I was zagging out, and now I'm zigging in a little bit, and I feel like you're zagging out a little bit.
it's so funny because like, yeah, and I think we're actually on the same journey, right? And that's where it's like, so I found Jesus in college, started, stopped drinking, stopped hooking up with girls, started living my life according to the word and getting into church and following the doctrine and, trying to be a better Christian, and I've been reading Bible studies and reading my Bible my whole life. But yeah, I think what I'm departing from the fundamental. There's the progressive and the fundamentalist, and I found so much in the mystics and mythicism. Joseph Campbell is amazing, and I don't think we need a new church, but I think we need a revival. So I think like I stand at the precipice of like, and there's a really good book, Do I Stay Christian? And I can't remember the author's name, but he's part of Richard Rohr's fund. And that was that podcast I sent you, his Center for Something Contemplation, CAC. And I think those guys got it. And I think there's a sect of us that get it. And I think the getting it is like, we're living into the Christ-like consciousness and like following what we seek and would describe as like what Christ called us to live, which is a different version of Christianity than I think any of the fundamentalist traditional like church segregations, denominations, right? And so I haven't really baked this out, what that looks like, but my intent is to unite all the churches, including the Islamic. Like that would be the race I'm running. But as far as me and mine, like I believe in Jesus. I believe what Jesus told us. I too don't know that he died and rose again, but I do know that he opens a pathway for us to access like deeper subconscious and God. I think that, like that's one of the things that I've been really wrestling with lately is like the New Testament and the Old Testament God are the same God. And before there was the word, there was Jesus, and Jesus was with God, and Jesus is inside of us. So wrestling with this Trinity and this oneness with God and trying to find the consistencies of, the Old Testament God, which is foundationally, I believe, the same as the Judaism and very similar to the Quran. Like where does that quest of the Old Testament tie in with the new quest and what Jesus did? So I'd still label myself as a Christian. I'd still say that I believe in the death and resurrection as they want me to. But I don't know I do know that it didn't have to happen to be true. So like if something happened today where somebody came out and said like, factually, this is just non-disputable facts. Jesus did not die and rose again. I would go to the text and I'd say everything that he told us still stands. Everything, not one iota of what Jesus said hinged on a respiration stopping and starting and a physical walk. It's all about a spiritual journey. It's all about enlightenment. It's all about finding heaven, right? And I don't believe that heaven is exclusively a place where you die and rise after you respirate. I think heaven is a state of being. It's a realm that we can access if we can shed ourselves of our sins, and which coincidentally are all the rules that we made for ourselves. You have to be wealthy, you have to be popular, you have to blah blah blah, like do this, do that, is you have to follow this. All the rules that we made are the very sin and barriers that keep us from the one true rule when we were in the Garden of Eden and heaven, and in alignment with ourself and our God, right? That's all we should be seeking, is alignment with our God. And I think Jesus gave us a great runway for that, but we've bastardized it. So I'm preparing some sort of, I don't want to say a walk away. I think I know God put me on this earth to unite unlikely people. Like, I'm a community builder. I'm gonna build bridges where there are none. And I think part of that journey for me is not to leave or start a new church, but to elevate our church. I think and I don't mean to say elevate like what I have is better, but I think we're due for a religious revival. I think we can look around at society and see what it looks like when we start leaving. I don't know, like when we start to establish ourselves as a godless world, like it becomes a very empty, hollow, and damaging place. So I think we're primed for a religious revival, but I hope to be a safe place for people to come and wonder, and to build a church that embraces curiosity rather than rigidity, and where a pastor of a Christian church can co-lead with a pastor of an Islamic church. I know that's way out there, but it's like,
It's not out
come
there,
on,
man.
guys.
I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't know this, but we all believe in the same God.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
and I'm not just being like ironic there, but like we all believe in Abraham and the Abrahamic. What was it that God told Abraham to bless all nations or something like that?
yeah.
We all trace our religion back to that. All three, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity are all. I had no idea. I thought Islam was some sort of like out there. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, you
That's pretty
shouldn't be
crazy.
embarrassed because dude, I think there's some very, very high up there in the Christian church peoples that like either dismiss that, ignore that, or don't acknowledge it, or don't know. Like, so I think that, and yeah, you shouldn't be embarrassed. I think it's profound, and that you should be proud of how quick you came to that realization. And I think, as all Christians, I would just say, guys, like, be more curious. Like, what do you like? How I don't know how we can believe in an expansive, ever loving God that condemns what 70% of the world. Like, those are his people too. How can we not see everybody as God's people? Like, how is it so easy? And we get ourselves hung up because we think, well, they have a God that's not our God, so that's a false God. No, the false God is your ego, bro. It's all your ego and all the shit that you're prioritizing that's getting in the way of you and your true God. But I think that the most interesting place to study that is like Mormonism. And if you talk to most Christians, they denounce Mormons who believe almost exactly in the death and resurrection. They just added a book, and they're out just as far out as the Islamics. Like, they don't get included. And I think that's like, what more evidence do you need that you're off base when you've got a big group of people that are they really do. They follow the scriptures better than we do. They're very disciplined. They're very loving, and they check the boxes better than we do. And they believe in the death and resurrection, but they would be cast out and excluded from heaven as we've described it. It's like, all right, so you're doing it to Christians too. I don't know, man. I think it's wrong. I believe it's wrong, and I don't want to sit here and get high on my laurels and think that I'm right, but I think it's just too limiting of a view of God to think that he was so exclusionary, or whatever that word is, exclusive to only people that believe in one day, one thing happening in the right way. Yeah. So I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know where that leaves me. I don't know where that heads me, but I do know that, like, I have a God-given desire to build a bridge or a series of bridges that bring us to a more expansive and inclusive version of God, and one where in which we don't have senseless religious wars where we're killing people over beliefs. I mean, it's crazy. We're killing people over beliefs that are more similar than they are different. Like, what in the world? How? Talk about stupid. Like, we're just not that smart.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's really not about the religion. It's about the corruption in the religion that is causing it. I mean, do you ever sit
Yeah,
back and I do all the time? I wonder, like, okay, what would Christianity, what would I'm Catholic, what would this all look like if just magically you could strip all the corruption over the years out? Because you know it's in there.
yeah.
Because there are, like you talk about Mormon, there are fundamentalist Mormons that do give Mormonism a bad name. The LDS, the ones that have the 10 wives, and there are Muslims that
Yeah.
are extremists and terrorists that give Muslims a bad name. And I'm
Well,
sure
have
they
you
say the
watched the
same thing
movie?
about Christians, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
have you watched Spotlight? Like, look at the Catholic Church and the pedophilia. I mean,
yeah,
like
yeah.
we're all human. We're all sinful human, and like we all deserve the grace of God and Jesus. But yeah, dang. Well, we'll pick.
Your
I have series planned.
your theory on heaven sound a lot like Buddhism enlightenment.
I've got a diary of all the places in John where it speaks to that. So I think the scriptures would back it if we're willing. And this is the thing. This is a great moment. Is like I think it's true of life in life, kind of similar to psychedelics. Like you will find what you seek, right? So I go to the scriptures seeking deeper meaning, and guess what? I find it. I have a curious stance, and like it just becomes more and more alive, more and more expansive. Like it's blowing my mind every time I read it because I'm coming there seeking to find deeper meaning. I think most people that have already formed their beliefs, and there's a lot of ego in this, like they seek in the scriptures validation what they already believe to be true. And guess what? That's what they find. So when I interpret a verse that says, hey, heaven might be more expansive, like they read it differently, right? And that's I think it's important, like the disposition, like I firmly believe it. Like you'll find exactly what you seek. If you're a depressed, anxious person, like, and I'm not saying anything about the mental state of depression, but like if you're anxious and dramatic, I think dramatic is the better. You will find drama everywhere. If you're a positive person, you will find positivity everywhere, right? I don't know.
But let me challenge you on this though, because like you're having a hard time with like the people that you go to church with and their beliefs. But if it works for them, what's the problem, man?
No, there is none. And that's, I think, a lot of it. I think there is none. The problem would be, and I don't want to call it a problem, the opportunity is how many people have we ostracized and how many people will never come to know Jesus because of the one for one assumption that you go into the church and you light on fire or something to that effect, right? Like I'm not welcome there. So the problem for me is the hypocrisy of it is preventing those children, God's people, from finding him, because one for one, like the perception of us as Christians is, so I don't mind it, but as a group, like if we're not inclusive and accepting of curious people, like that's, I mean, I don't blame any atheists for not wanting to be a part of the church, right? And I mean, Cam's a great example. We did that Bible study. Like Cam's like, yeah, I'm just not ready. Like we create walls that make it harder for people to find goodness is all I'd say
Mm-hmm.
with our rigidity. So that's all. I don't, yeah, that's where, so what I'm stuck at attention of is like, do you need to start a new church or like, I think I think if we could get the church to just open its arms and ears and heart to those that like of you, like you would probably, if you were to just go into church and be candid with what you think, like they would spend a lot of time trying to change your mind and convince you that you're wrong. And I think that would push you away and a lot of people away. And I think I don't know. I think we need to solve for that so that like people like us are still, I don't want to say the word tribally accepted, but like, I don't think that we should be ostracized for being uncertain. I don't think that's the right answer
Mm-hmm.
if we want the most people possible to come to know Jesus or come to know God or to be on this quest. We're accidentally putting up walls for that, and that's what I take issue with.
I get it, man. I get it. But I think there's more positives in the church than negatives. It's easy to see the negatives, but
100%.
it's
Absolutely.
and
I totally agree.
there's a lot of good there too. I've been involved with the church a little bit now since I'd say the last month. I've actually been going to a church for a Bible study, not the church itself, but to like a Bible study after. And there's a lot of talk of like, you just need to surrender to God and he'll take care of it. I, you know, and like, and I'm not talking for like simple issues, like just in general surrender, but like you got an issue with X. Okay. The way to overcome that issue with X is to surrender to God. He's
yeah.
going to, and I struggle with that.
Let me, and I said it at our study the other week, the example of Timmy, right? And so I'm going to say it for our listeners, but like, right, my spiritual mentor who brought me to Jesus, Timmy Conrad, like he's having trouble with school, and he's like, I'm just going to give it up to God and stop working so hard at it. And at this time, I'm not in the faith. And I'm like, Timmy, you dumbass, like your grades are not going to get better if you stop working at it. Right. And it's like, that's a natural thing to say. I think the surrender to God is so when we put ourselves in tension, we wrestle and we obsess. And so I think what the scripture is telling us to release ourselves of the burden of shame, guilt, and condemnation, right? Is to cast it at its feet. So like your obsession, let's just say your business, right? Like your business is your obsession. As long as you put that as a higher priority than God, like that will become your God. And I think you just told us the story of how your business like didn't fulfill you, right? And so the difference in like going to work and working hard and trying to achieve what you want to achieve doesn't stop with surrender, but you put it in a veil of importance where like it becomes less than. Like there's no God that's more important than you seeking enlightenment, and you surrender the obsession, right? I think of this like I think of the version of an unbridled human, which like you're unbridled by anything. Like you run the race the best you can, absent the obsession with outcome. So I think that's what that looks like. And I went through a really tough time with my business. Like I was very close to putting a bankruptcy in my resume, and I never once fretted. I worked my ass off. Like I was back from working, I had to go back and do the 80-hour grind, but I never once freaked out. Like it never stole my joy. It never consumed me. It was everything. I had to do everything I could. And I just sat there and I said, if God wills me to have a bankruptcy, I will learn a lesson. I hope that he doesn't. And I'm going to run this race the best way I know how, but I'm not going to I'm not going to become a worse husband. Anything we're obsessed with, all the way up to working out, right? I had to take a break from working out because I had put my body had become an idol, right? And I think that's the essence of like, you lose yourself when you start obsessing with things that don't matter. And I think that's when I think of surrender, is just like, I understand that there's a God in play that's far bigger than me. And like, I'm so small, and it sounds weird, but there's such a freedom in that when you know that the God of the universe is in control and you're not. And all you have to do is run the race the best way you can. That's what I think of when I think of surrender. Like, and then the next thing is like, yeah, just shedding yourself of all the rules you've made for yourself and all the obsessions and all the things you care about. Like, that's where I think the Bible is telling us, like, it's very hard for a rich man to get into heaven because you have all sorts of things that can become your idols, your cars, your dirt bikes, your toys. And that's also why sex is so captivating, right? It's like, you can get lost if you like lust, and like you could just get so lost because it's very crippling when you obsess with things that aren't in line with like God's intended purpose for you. I don't know.
Dude, that speaks to me for sure. Cause you had asked what the low point was. I didn't say it at the time, but now with you saying that, because you nailed it. Like work was my God in a way,
Yeah.
and not in a healthy way, not encouraging that. That made me derive my full self-worth daily on how work was going. Daily. I mean, like the store had a good day today, I'm feeling good. The store had a bad day today, I'm feeling bad. I'm worthless.
Yeah, and that's everything, and everybody does it with different things, but that it will always leave you empty, right? If you seek fulfillment, and it works until it doesn't, and then it's just that's it, and that's where it becomes very hard. I think with women and all like that becomes I think that's why those two are so emphasized as like, because that's very dangerous, captivating, and consuming for us is wealth, sexual intimacy, and all of that. Like you can very, very easily put that on a pedestal, get consumed by it. And what you're really doing is losing yourself. You're losing yourself. I mean, that's the surrender, is getting rid of all that shit, whatever that shit is that you've made. And it's all ego driven. That's what's also interesting. It's all ego driven. It's all like anybody that's upset. And this is, I don't want to get into it.
I love the way you put it though. Cause like, that's not the way it was put in this group.
No.
In this group, it was like, hey, like you have a problem with this, all you need to do is surrender and your problem is going to get better. Like, no, man, like real problems take, like, I agree, the surrender is probably can mentally give you a full lift from it, but you're gonna have to put some work in. Life requires work.
Yeah. Well, and dude, I mean, Jesus said that, and like it's the first thing that he commanded. Like we were to work the garden. Like that is, it's not like there is no, yeah. I think work is good. It's just when it becomes an idol. So like we're here to work, and yeah, I think the scriptures back that up. Surrender is,
Well,
it's where you place it on priority.
to quote my mom, God helps those who help themselves.
Hey, amen, man. I think Cynthia's got some wisdom, man. Well, dude, I don't want to wrap it up without just one really quick, like, so you're running a multi-million-dollar shop, like super successful. Like, what would you give for the aspiring entrepreneurs that might tune in? Like, what would your guidance be? Like, when you think of leadership, when you think of success, like, it's probably going to be a theme that we almost just went to, but like, what would be your guiding principle to find success in the entrepreneurial journey?
Man, Kevin, that's a tough question, and I guess I don't have the confidence to answer it right now because right now I feel like I know less. The more I know, the less I know.
That's wisdom.
I think you feel like you have it all figured out at times, and I think that's why the religion and all this stuff is so. I would have had a hard time having discussion with you about stuff that I couldn't prove true or false years ago, and now I'm more open to having that discussion. And I think it's because all the stuff that I thought I knew and I thought I had figured out just changes so rapidly. And right now, I'm not doing as well as I would like to, work wise, leadership wise. So I'm going to refrain. I'm maybe if you have me back, I can have a better answer developed. But I don't think I'm in a spot to give any advice right now.
Yeah, there was a lot of wisdom in that nugget. Well, dude, thanks for joining. And I don't think this is going to be your last appearance. We got too much to talk about, but I appreciate you supporting it, man.